My name is Jesper Birch Jensen. I work as an analyst here at ABG. And up next, we have Flexion Mobile, where we have the company's CFO, Niklas Kurosar, here with us today, who's going to present the company. So with that said, please go ahead, Niklas.
Thanks a lot. I'm the CFO in Flexion Mobile, Niklas Kurosar, and as you can see, I'm presenting from home, where I've been sitting for the last 11 weeks in this lockdown we have here in London. So it's actually very nice to actually meet some people, even though it's on a virtual basis. First, I want to mention this terrible COVID on what the corporate effect has been on Flexion. We already had a remote access policy in the company before this pandemic hit us. So we could shift to a virtual, from working from home policy basically overnight without any disruption. So the whole workforce has been working full steam ahead. The market has also been picking up. So if anything, we've seen a positive effect from this. So for us, it's really, we consider ourselves one of the lucky ones here in this terrible crisis we have at the moment. So if you go to the next slide, we see that Flexion Mobile is the leading distribution platform for mobile games on the alternative Android market. So that means that we go to third-party game developers and secure the distribution rights for these games onto the stores, which we're working very closely with. So we work with stores like Amazon, Samsung, One Store, Huawei, where we then distribute these games. We were founded in 2007. We're London-based with 50 staff. We went to the market 2 years ago to First North in Stockholm. And we have a run rate of about £10 million on an annualized basis, about 120 million kronor. Next slide. So it's the market slide now. So we are, as I mentioned, active on the mobile gaming market. It's an absolutely massive market. It's $17 billion. And I actually saw that this slide is actually a bit old. It should be updated. It was $70 billion. It's now $90 billion, which is the forecast for 2020. So there's a lot of growth on the market. It's a huge size. In terms of where we're active, we don't focus on Apple. So we focus on the Android market. That is our addressable market. That's what we technically can do. On that market, we don't work with Google and we don't work with on the Chinese market. So we focus on the alternative market. That's our go-to-market strategy, and that's the market we want to take. So next slide. So why does Flexion exist? Basically, a game developer writes one game file for Google and one for Apple, and everyone does the same. So in these two stores, there are 4 million apps in each store, so they're heavily overcrowded as stores. So the only way a developer can be seen is to spend a lot of money on advertising and user acquisition. So next slide. At the same time, it's very hard for them to reach out to new stores because the games has become so complicated that you need one new distribution pipe for each new opportunity. At the same time as it's very hard to judge how big the revenue opportunity are in these stores. So most developers stick to their 2 existing stores. So next slide. So here we have a market problem which Flexion solved by integrating these alternative stores into a distribution platform. So what we can tell a developer is, you're good at Google, you're good at Apple, so great, you do that. And we take care about the rest of the distribution. So next slide. We do this through a full service offer, and it's a unique offer that no one else can offer in the market. So basically, we get the game file that the game developer writes for Android, which is for Google Play. And that's the file that you as an end consumer download if you buy an app. So we get that file, then we convert the file, and we do all the steps necessary for the distribution of that file. So it's a true full service offer. And that means that we can go to a game developer and tell them, give us the file and we send you back money. So there is very little efforts that, stuff that the game developer have to do themselves. So next slide. So if you look on the technology itself, and that's where the history of Flexion is so important. So we have for the last plus 10 years worked on an automated process where we can take that game file dimension, chuck it into the machine, and the machine can then read the binary code of that file, and by doing that can automatically replace and add code to the file, so we take control of the file. And when we have control of the file, we can then add the functionality needed, so we can replicate the file for the various stores. And this is, nowadays, is a really, really important technology, because a modern game developer may update their game. They may say every third week, but they may actually do it every week. And if they're really working with the game, you can update every third or fourth day. So if you have 20 games, 10 stores, you need a technology. You can't do it manually. You don't have the time, and it's not accurate enough to do it that way. This is a technology that is patented in the US. It's a patent pending in Europe. So next slide is the business model. The business model is very simple. We get a file, we convert it, we put it out in a store, an end consumer downloads the game, and then he starts to buy, say, golden coconuts for $100. Yeah, those $100 are paid down to the store, who traditionally took 30%. So the store would pay us $70, which we then share with the developer on an 80-20 basis. What we see, the trend in our market is that the stores are reducing their store fee, and we start to see rev shares down from 15 to 20%. So assume it's 15%. The store charge 15%, we charge 15%. So we actually offer the same 30%, including our own fee, which the developers are prepared to pay in Google and Apple. So effectively, we do it at the same cost, but we do everything for them, and they don't require any user acquisition. So it's a really powerful offering to the developer. Next slide. So how far have we come? We went for a global rollout 2 years ago, and since then we built up the biggest portfolio of games on our market. So we have now signed 16 top 500 games. So just give you one measure how big they are. So these games on an annualized basis across all platforms, not just for us, but including Google, Apple, everything else, generate on an annual basis above $1 billion. So it really is top-end IP we are working with. I mentioned the technology, and we also now have the biggest distribution offer in the market. So we cover the biggest stores on the market. And these are stores work very big. So what we try to achieve here is to create a stable and diversified platform and model to work on, which is also profitable over time. And by creating that kind of stability in combination with that, we really will work with the top-end the content on the market. It's a perfect position to strike for future growth. So there is a saying on the market that content is king, and we are already now the king on our market. So it's a very, very interesting way to look at the position at the moment to grow further the company. So next slide. This is something we've been asked questions about since the start, which I think everyone struggled to understand a bit. Why is it only us who can do this? And we tried a lot of different ways to explain it, and here's the latest suggestion. And it's a chicken and egg problem. And it basically is that if you think about it, to get a portfolio of games, you need the channels and you need the technology. And if you have them, you can't get the games. The same with the technology. You can't build the technology if you don't have the games and the channels. So it's very difficult to build this up, this momentum we have at the moment. So basically what you have to do, you have to start with very simple game, very simple store and technology, and then you raise one of the legs a little bit, you stabilize it, and you do it again and again and again and again. And so this is something we've done over 10 years, and we therefore considered us to have built really strong barriers of entry for competition here. So think about it, someone else magically can get our technology. Yeah, that's great, but they can't get any channels because they don't have the games, and they don't have the games because they don't have channels. So we feel that we are a couple of years ahead of competition here. So next slide, financials. I can't talk too much about this because we're presenting our Q4 in 2 weeks. The only thing I want to say is the timing of releases. So we release games when we sign them, and hopefully when we launch the games. And there is a lag between the two of, say, 1 to 3 months, and that is primarily that we're waiting for marketing campaigns for the stores, because they have quite long cycles, and you're kind of lost in the queue and you have to wait for your slot, so to say. And thereafter we're building up an organic user base, so it takes anything from 6 to 9 months until the games is properly up and running in terms of users and revenue. So you have to be a little bit patient in terms of revenues after you see this signing of a game. Then a little bit about the future of Flexion. So the next slide. So per definition, we are in the market where the future is. You're moving from a two-store model to a much more fragmented offering on the market. Yeah? And all of that is happening on our market. So we see a number of important trends on the market. We see the emergence of new regions. One is Southeast Asia. We have very fragmented users, languages, nations, and also payment solutions, which the big giants struggle to cover because it's very fragmented. We see new monetization models, so that all the stores active on our market, so to say, they try to differentiate themselves by coming up with slightly different offers, which creates fragmentation. But it's very powerful tools to monetize, but they're quite tricky to follow. Then we start to see the emergence of new ways to distribute games. So the traditional model was a very fixed app store, but we see that the boundaries of those stores are crumbling a little bit at the moment. So you see more hybrid models coming out on the market. And that could be that the game pops up directly in your mobile through, say, a virtual preload. And then that actually all the payment and all the flows are actually in the game and not through a store. That's very, very exciting. We think that is the future. And finally, the really Formula One turbo effect here, that is user acquisition. The whole market outside is driven by user acquisition and advertising, and it's now slowly coming to our market. And if our market is 2 billion and the bigger market is 90 or 85, there is a lot of upside here. So why is this so good for Flexion? So if you go back to the technology, we see that, if you remember that we put in the file and we take control over it. So what we can do is to follow all these new trends really, really closely. And then when we see something that we believe in, we can then develop support for it, and we can spread out the cost of that support, development cost, over a big portfolio of games. Whereas game developers may have 1 or 2 games, struggle to justify that investment. And we can also then very easily or effortless put that technology into the games because we have this technology. So we're perfectly positioned to follow these new trends. So what are we trying to build, just to wrap it up? So that's the next slide. Yeah. So we're building a core business, which is basically a stable, balanced, profitable company which we can grow by adding more games, adding more distribution, and grow existing games on existing channels. So it's a multi-dimensional growth here with quite a big multiple in terms of revenues. But from there, because we have the content, we can take advantage of the new opportunities. We can work with alternative promotions, solutions, I mentioned. And that's for us very much not a revenue driver, but it's a margin driver where we can help and build the support needed for these stores ourselves, and they can then pay us for our development time, and they have very deep pockets. The next one is, of course, the hybrid stores. When you don't have the full stores offering, if you distribute something which is not the traditional store, someone needs to add technology to support that, and we already have that. So we can help the market involved into these hybrid stores. And that's, of course, a massive revenue growth for us opportunity. And finally, you have the user acquisition. That needs technical support, understanding, and people in the middle. That could be us. And that is a basically unlimited growth opportunity for us. So just to summarize, the go-to-market strategy is to build a stable, diversified, and profitable company with the biggest content. And from there on, move into this kind of turbo effects in terms of revenue. So that's Flexion. Thank you.
Thank you, Niklas. I was wondering, you've mentioned previously that you've seen some increase in player engagement following COVID-19. How has this trend continued into perhaps April and May, and also has monetization in your channels been affected in a positive or negative way?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're releasing our numbers in 2 weeks. I struggle a little bit to comment on this, but generally, it's been widely reported that the market that gaming has been picking up. It's people are sitting home, they're bored, and they use their mobile a lot, so they play a lot of games. I think what we are hoping for as an effect is that you have more time, and you start to explore new means of distribution. And for example, in London, there was a lot of items that actually you couldn't buy in the shops. So everyone explored whatever. So it's a lot of farmers apps and local food apps that actually benefit a lot. And we see and we hope the same to happen on our market. So hopefully here we see a long-term shift towards alternative distribution where you actually can have better monetization and better offerings for the end consumer. Yes.
And also, I was wondering, has the lockdown had any effect on your ability to sign new titles to your portfolio? And if so, how have you adjusted your operations to counteract it?
To be frank, it seems like a lot of people are sitting home. I'm not in the marketing or sales team, but what I heard from them is that it's actually quite easy to reach out to people because people are bored sitting home and they have time to consider what you call kind of alternative solutions like us. So we haven't really seen any negative effects here. We of course, we work a lot with the Chinese developers who are now coming out to the massive Chinese market, and they focus Google, Apple. And they came out of this pandemic quite early, so it has been quite limited effect, to be frank, on us.
And also, I was wondering if you could say something about the Huawei and Xiaomi distribution channels. How are things going there? Is it going according to plan, or what's your experience so far?
It's Huawei is a very interesting case. We all know that they've been struggling a bit with the US. So they have their old phones, or the existing phones have the Google services on it, but the new ones don't. But it's in terms of hardware, it's really strong, a really strong offering. So Huawei's put down a $1 billion fund to attract content to the platform. And on the game side, Flexion is here. We already used to work with non-Google because we do it on Amazon, on their Fire devices, which is not Google supported either. So we're very close to that. So we're supporting Huawei and will continue to do so. And of course, they have massive user bases. It's really, really early days for us in terms of the opportunity, but it can be really big. Xiaomi is the next phase. They're a bit behind. So far, they're on Google. But you have them, and then you have the other big Chinese giants like Oppo and Vivo, who's also slowly looking into their offerings on the kind of Western markets. So it's more to come, so to say. Yeah.
And lastly, just looking at the rest of the year, where will your focus be? Will there be any specific area will you focus your attentions during 2020?
For us, it's very much as explained on the last slide. It's to get the existing games, to grow the existing games on existing channels, is to add more games, and that is something that becomes easier and easier the bigger we become and the more accepted we become in the market. And then is to add a few selected more channels to really cement this core strategy. And at the same time, it is to start looking at new opportunities, really to turbocharge the growth here. But the strategy is very much to grow the core platform of the company during this year.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you, Niklas, for coming here
Thank you very much.
Presenting.